He just turned 80. He wants to extend his 43-year rule. His son is the country's flamboyant vice president, and yet Equatorial Guinea is dealing with widespread poverty. President Teodoro Obiang Nguema is the world's longest-standing leader, following closely by Cameroon's Paul Biya. But what makes leadership and the presidency in Africa so attractive that people want to remain at the top and rule with an iron fist? Let's find out in this next report.
He has been president of a seldomly talked about West African country for over 4 decades. The tall, occasionally shy head of state began his rule of Equatorial Guinea when he snatched power in a 1979 coup. Under him, the country has become increasingly reclusive and reliant on oil and gas, which provides about 3/4 of state revenues. The rule of Obiang has been marked by torture of political opponents, sham elections, and widespread corruption. He has often dismissed such charges. Then there is him, Teodoro Nguema, Obiang Mange, also known as Teodorin. He is vice president of oil-rich Equatorial Guinea, which is ruled over by his father. Teodorin is always portrayed as the playboy prince, and he loves the attention too. But the catch to this story is the octogenarian leader doesn't want to stop just yet. He longs to be president again.
Firstly, you need to know that in a democratic state, I don't think it's good to speak about succession as though it were an inheritance. You speak of alternation, of change. Change is a better expression. In the same way, if I am at the head of the country, it is because of the will of the people.
Just a few kilometers away from this small country is Cameroon at the border. The West African country has its share of tales when it comes to leaders. Paul Biya, one of the world's oldest and longest-serving leaders, marked 40 years as head of state after assuming power on November 6, 1982. Biya rose to the top after 7 years as prime minister. He is only the second president in Cameroon's history since the Central African nation gained independence from France. He is also the continent's longest-serving leader after Obiang. He has a constellation of loyalists in key positions and crushes or sidelines opponents and rivals. But his public outings, except for a few choreographed TV appearances, have become rarer and rarer in recent years, stoking speculation about his health. Conversations about a successor are rife. Those most commonly named are Biya's son, Frank Biya, and Finance Minister Louis-Paul Motase. The younger Biya already has a discreet following among supporters called Frankists.
In Cameroon, there is only one party whose reach stretches across the whole country. That's the ruling party, the RDPC, which uses the material, financial and human resources of the state. Only he can do that.
The list of men who hold on to power is long. Until his death, José Eduardo dos Santos was in power for 38 years. He was the president of Angola from 1979 to 2017. Dos Santos was accused of corruption and human rights abuses during his time in office. Denis Sassou was also one of Africa's longest-serving presidents. He was president of the Republic of the Congo for 36 years. He first came to power in 1979 and was re-elected 3 times. Sassou was accused of corruption and human rights abuses during his office. Yoweri Museveni has been the president of Uganda for 35 years. He first came to power in 1986 and has since been re-elected 3 times. Museveni is the 3rd oldest head of state in Africa at 78. In recent years, there have been calls for term limits in Uganda, but Museveni has resisted these efforts. In 2017, he amended the constitution to remove the president's age limit, effectively allowing him to stay in power for life. Idriss Déby ruled Chad for 31 years. He first came to power in 1990 after leading a rebellion against the military government. Déby has since been re-elected 5 times until his assassination in April 2021. Isaias Afwerki has been the president of Eritrea for 27 years. He first came to power in 1991 after leading the country's independence movement from Ethiopia. Afwerki has since been re-elected twice. Eritrea is one of the world's most militarized countries, with all able-bodied citizens required to serve in the military. This has led to a mass exodus of Eritreans, with many fleeing the country for safety and opportunity elsewhere. Djibouti's Ismail Omar Guelleh has ruled for 21 years. At 73, he won a 4th 5-year term in 2016 and sought another term in 2021. And Morocco's king, Mohammed VI, has served as monarch for 21 years. The Moroccan royal family has reigned since 1631, making it the Muslim world's oldest dynasty.
It's always better to alternate. Well, there are problems with changing over when things are not going well. If things are going well, there are no problems with changing. But if things aren't going well, there are a lot of problems. We think that by alternating, things can change, a new era, a new idea. But 40 years in power is still a lot.
Many experts say that countries lacking an effective political opposition are vulnerable to constitutional coups. In Gawa, Africa's longest-serving presidents are a varied group, with some ruling for over 3 decades. While some have used their time in power to improve the lives of their citizens, others have become increasingly repressive and authoritarian. Sub-Saharan Africa is home to many of the world's longest ruling heads of state. Some post-colonial leaders in the 1960s and 70s sought to become president for life, with several managing to remain in power for 3 or more terms. By the turn of the 21st century, the trend of entrenched leadership had spread across the region, spurring corruption, instability, societal fractures, and economic stagnation. The trend has been thwarted in some countries, in part due to sustained pressure by civil society groups and regional blocs. But a global rise in authoritarianism threatens to undo recent progress. Leaders are increasingly securing longer terms through constitutional coups, proposing amendments for approval by the legislature or judiciary, or in national referenda that allow for additional terms in office. This practice grew more frequent after 2000, when many post-colonial leaders were nearing the ends of their constitutional term limits. It will be interesting to see how power changes hands in Africa in the coming years. Will the continent's current leaders step down peacefully, or will they cling to power until the end? Only time will tell. Bureau Report, World of Africa.